BeastNet is brought to you by James Safety Services in partnership with OCR Buddy and OCR Strong. Here we discuss all things OCR and fitness related. Welcome to BeastNet.
Hey everybody, it's Mike with BeastNet here, and this week I've got with me Weston Titus. Weston, kind of let everyone know a little bit about you and why you wanted to come on the show.
Hey everyone. My name is Weston Titus, and I am doing the Spartan Death Race. One of our pre-race requirements is to get on a podcast and kind of talk about why we would want to do something that crazy. So I'm sure we'll get into that. A little bit of my background personally. I'm in Southern California area. I own and run 2 gyms down here. I'm also a college professor in the health kinesiology world. So being physically active is kind of my 24/7 gig, whether I'm lecturing about it, leading classes, or working out myself. Shouldn't say just about done with my PhD, but working on my PhD. There's a lot of red tape going on. I'm looking at CBD and muscle recovery, and that's some people feel like giving CBD out for research is a problem, even though it's still legal here. So I don't know if we'll get into that, but that's a whole crazy another side of my life. But in terms of Spartans and stuff, I've done a whole bunch of stuff, handful of ultras. I've trifecta'd multiple years. One year I did 4 trifectas. I've done a bunch of hurricane heats, go ruck events. I've done a multiple half, and I've done a single full Ironman. Climbed Mount Whitney in a single day a few times. So the death race will definitely be the biggest challenge, as it's multiple days. It's coming up at the end of the month. I'm feeling prepared. I actually like this type of stuff, so should be fun times.
I mean, it sounds like you do. I mean, with all the things that you've done, I mean, and with your background and go to school, having 2 gyms. I mean, I'd almost think that sometimes this to you is almost like research.
It is a little bit
into what your body can do, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, but
it's definitely fun to be able to. My schedule, how it usually works out is some days I'm at the college all day, some days I'm at the gym all day. It's there aren't too many days where I'm at both, but it's nice to be able to kind of do the research, create the lectures, teach that almost like the next generation of coaches and athletes and things, because they're at the college level. But then I go to the gym the next day, and a lot of times my members will ask me very similar questions to what come up. So it feels nice to kind of be sharpening the axe blade on one end and then using it on the other. And it's this nice circle that wasn't really my goal starting out. When I graduated high school, I wasn't like, I'm going to own 2 gyms and be a college professor, but it's worked out really well in that aspect professionally. Quite happy with how work goes for me, basically.
Yeah, that's awesome to hear too, that, I mean, you don't hear many people who you can hear how much they love what they do. Like people who've gone to school for something, and, I have so many friends that went to school for whatever, thing, and they're like, well, this was dumb.
Mm-hmm.
And they hate it within a year or two, where, I mean, I can hear you're going for your PhD, but you're still, I mean, you're doing Spartan events, you're doing death races, you're doing Ironmans, you're doing all that. So you're still enjoying it, and it's something you enjoy doing that you can turn into your hobbies along with what you do for, for life, which is awesome.
Yeah, it definitely, so the gyms that I am a part owner in and coach, I don't know, 15 classes or so a day. They're called F45, or they're F45s. I don't know if they're kind of like CrossFit light, I guess, maybe, if I was going to give a 1-second summary of it. But in those classes, I demo those movements. I'm constantly walking around on my feet. I'll correct members. So even when I'm at work, air quotes, I really enjoy coaching. I'm still coming home with 15,000 steps before lunch, and maybe I've coached 3 or 4 classes, but I've done a really low level intensity workout because I'm demoing kettlebell swings, or someone's having trouble with understanding how to do a squat. So I'll do, a dozen squats with them or something. So it's nothing that's going to make me sore, but I think that's maybe my secret to, if I'm successful at the Spartan race, it's because my job allows me to be physically active for 3, 4, 5 hours a day, not including my workout.
Yeah, which is awesome. I mean, it's one of those, I wish I could get more into that. I'm in construction safety. I pace all day, but I don't get to do all the other stuff. Because that's always been my issue, is trying to find the time. Like right now, like I said, I mean, I got home early enough today. I could run in the, into the gym that I have in the garage, and I was able to jump on the treadmill for a quick, 2 miles, and then jumped on the row machine for 15 minutes or whatever, and then run upstairs, take a quick shower, and get in here to record. So it's kind of one of those things for me. A lot of time I'm having to pigeonhole in those workouts to try, and a lot of time I don't feel like I get enough out of them. And that's one of those things that's cool to be able to be at the gym all the time, because I have been training for an Ironman. I wrecked on the Seattle one this year, so I've been retraining. I had some issues with my knee that I did the stupid mistake I knew better than to do, and took a break, and too much of a break. So I gained like 40 pounds of everything that I lost back. So now it's fighting to get rid of that so that I can get back into the shape that I need to be for the Ironman, because if I don't use those bikes I have downstairs, my wife's going to kill me for spending so much on them. So.
And that's bringing up the Ironman. I think it's a great contrast to the Death Race. So I've done many shorter triathlons and one full, and it's interesting. The training and kind of the mentality going into these events is so much different, because with a triathlon, right, you have swim, bike, run, and depending upon the distance, exactly those distances. You've probably hopefully practiced those distances, your T1, your T2. So I don't want to say it makes training easy, right, because it's still physically hard and it takes a long time. But compared to something like the Spartan race, or sorry, the Death Race, there's so much unknown that I like that aspect of it. And I think that's why I'm doing these types of Spartan races, or the Go Ruck heavies or toughs or things, is because you don't know how to train for it. And for some reason that gets me going a little bit more. I liked the Ironman training, but it was so, you could do a 6-month training program on a piece of paper, right? Okay, today I'm going to run 1 mile. Tomorrow I'm going to run 1.5 miles, and then I'm going to buy, like, this is fun to me, where I'm like, well, should I chop wood today? Should I do burpees? Do I need to do an ice bath? Not for recovery, but just because I might have to sit in a lake of ice water. Like, there's so much unknown. It makes training more varied, which I like, but potentially harder, right? How horrible would it be if I got to the Death Race and they were like, we're going to do, well, I don't know, 24 hours of bear crawls. And for some reason I hadn't done any bear crawls. Like, it's a lot easier to mess up or eliminate yourself if you don't go really random, if you don't roll the dice on a lot of stuff. So
and that is one of the things when I've seen all this stuff, and that's one of the things that I've thought about doing those ones. And I always loved, like you said, like the Go Rucks and some of those, and like the Hurricane Heats, because you can't specifically train. I do love doing the triathlons. I've been really getting into triathlons the last couple of years. In fact, me and my friend did a training last week. It was the stupidest one. Well, not the stupidest, but we swam 400 meters, ran a mile, swam 400 meters, ran a mile. So we had to, so basically we're like, okay, well, I don't want to keep switching shoes. So I just, grabbed my Ultra and, Ultras, put them on. I'm like, well, I guess I'm wearing them while I'm swimming, and, it's still cold enough up here that we have to wear wetsuits. So then you're running in your wetsuit. And I mean, it was one of those things, but to get that mix of cardio back and forth between the two different types was kind of fun. And I mean, it wasn't just like one time. I mean, we did multiple laps of this and kept doing it because, well, we're dumb, but, but it's good getting those things in, because, in an Ironman, like you said, you're going to swim, you're going to ride the bike, and then you're going to run. You know how to train for that. When you go to do the Hurricane Heats, all of a sudden, they're like you said, all of a sudden, okay, go bear crawl for 24 hours. And you're like, well, all the training I just did went out the window, because that's the one thing I can't do, and that's why you have to train for everything. And then usually you train for everything, and then they hit you with something. You're like, well, I never even thought of that.
Yeah. And the, maybe your listeners will laugh at this. I did a Spartan race earlier in the year Hurricane Heat earlier in the year in Phoenix. And one of the required items was swimming fins, like, on your feet, swimming fins, right? And I Google mapped the area. I was like, there's no water here. Like, there's no lake, right? And And I was just like, okay, I guess I'll bring them, and maybe we're gonna be in the dunk wall and have to paddle for an hour straight while they fire hose us down or something. No, we just put them on right at the beginning, and we kept them on for almost all of it, and just had to like run with fins on, like, and it was all over Instagram for a while because the event coordinators thought it was hilarious to see whatever it was, 30 of us running down the desert with fins on, running like ducks. So
That is. And that's it though. But I mean, that's exactly like what that's straight to the point. Like we were just pointing out. I mean, you never know. All of a sudden they throw some random thing and you're like, okay, this is something I never thought about and never trained for. And I mean, that's really the whole idea of the hurricane heats and, you know, the death race, to try, and you have to be the most rounded athlete to really, you know, thrive at them.
And since we are somewhat close to the death race, I have the death race mandatory gear list open, and I just double checked it to make sure Andy didn't say that I can't share this. But there are some weird things if we want to go.
I want to know what these are, so we can have some fun and kind of guess the craziness they're going to do on this.
So there's the normal stuff: headlamps, emergency bivy, 5-gallon bucket, an axe, a knife, the normal things. The weirdness starts slower. We have to have 1 pound of donkey chow, which I don't know what that is. I have to email Andy. I've Googled it. I YouTubed it. I've Amazoned it.
You can't find donkey chow, huh?
Donkey chow. I'm hoping it's some type of like trail mix that maybe is just like a local term for another part of the country that I don't live in. I don't know.
It might be. I've never heard of it. There's weird ones because I can remember, like, you know, one of the trail mixes when I grew up, we called it Gorp or Garp or something. Yeah,
Gorp. Gorp is familiar to me.
Yeah,
that we had that. I don't even think it was ever on the label. It's just what everyone called.
Yeah, it's what everyone, because I can remember calling it Gorp once, and one of my friends was like, "What in the hell are you talking about?"
Yeah, you know, this is Gorp. We have to have a tooth from an animal or a human that has a cavity filling in it. So we can chat a little bit about this in terms of the problems, which I've already secured my tooth, but I had to pull some strings for this. And I won't name any names, but apparently this is a HIPAA violation for dentists to give out other people's tooths. If they've pulled them, they're supposed to dispose of them as like medical waste.
Yeah.
So getting a human tooth with a filling in it, really the only way I can think that you could do this kind of on the legal side is if your parents had kept your baby teeth and you happen to have a cavity that got filled before the tooth fell out, and 30 years later you go knock on mom's door and ask, hey, you know that creepy jar of teeth you keep in the closet? I need the one with a cavity in it.
Yeah. Or like hope that you have kids and you can get them to let you pull one. I mean, that is a very weird one. I mean, it's like you said, I mean, unless you can somehow like ask the dentist to ask their next person, hey, can I keep this?
So luckily I've got that one. The next kind of weird one is we have to have a complete shell or skull of an animal that's 5 inches or larger. They go in, you know, don't kill an animal for this, don't go hurt anything. I don't want to say problem, because I think this is kind of funny, but the issue with this is I live on the other side of the country and I'm going to be flying to the death race.
I just want to be the TSA agent that freaking goes through your bag.
We're going to have some weird stuff in my bag. There's this animal skull, which I haven't found that one yet, but I'm hoping that one's going to be a little bit more common. I've sent some feelers out to some friends that live more out in the country, and I'm hoping that I can get a cow skull.
That'd be cool.
That's going to be hard to ship. We have a feather from a turtle dove. We have 11 tomatoes. We have some stuff in here. It looks, my guess, so we have a cooking pot, 11 tomatoes, a couple pounds of pasta, family-sized beans, and then we have flint and magnesium to start a fire. So I'm assuming at some point, maybe like 36 hours in, we're going to have to cook ourselves pasta dinner. which would be kind of fun.
That would be.
Or we're going to throw the pan at each other and build a tower out of pasta. I don't know.
I mean, you never know. I mean, I've known Andy for years, and I mean, if she comes up with some things where you're just like, wait, what?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It's somewhat straightforward. I got my hands on the summer death race list from either 21 or 22, and they had to bring a power tool. Could be any power tool, but you could only bring one. And I was glad we didn't have that, because do you bring a drill or a saw? Because in my opinion, clearly one of those are going to be the best.
Mhm.
But if you pick the wrong one, right, those are two fundamental power tools, but you really need both to do construction.
You do.
So are you cutting things, or are you putting holes in things to see, like, are you making a spear? So you need to drill through, I was glad not to see that.
That would be interesting.
I do know the death race. It's called the death race. It's kind of their PR gig, right? Like, you might die.
Yeah.
There's only 10% of people or less complete this, all that type of thing. I do think they really kind of subtly make people aware of their own mortality in terms of the last item. And I'll read this off exactly. But I know one year they made them dig their own graves and read a eulogy, because it's the death race, right? Like, see, they had to dig a grave, they had to lay in it and read a, like, here lies Weston Titus, blah, blah, blah. So I have to bring a color photo printer, or photo of myself, 4 by 6 inches, headshot basically. And it just says, I have to hold a sign that says, I might die. And I'm sure they'll use this as our elimination poster. As people drop, they'll rip the poster, things off or something. But there's definitely always a little tinge of death in these, right? We've got skulls, we've got teeth, we've got feathers, we've got.
Well, I mean, if you finish, you get a skull.
Yeah, if you finish, you get a skull. So they like that theme, which will be fun to lay into.
It sounds very interesting. I mean, it's just like some of the things in that you have to have with you, and it's just like, huh. I mean, the skull sounds interesting, but then you have the question too: is if you get too big, are you going to have to carry that thing around? Is it going to become too cumbersome and bulky? But if it's too small and you know something that you could fall over and break, I mean, there's all sorts of questions there. I always felt they should have had some way, which I guess that's part of the challenge, though, is getting the stuff there, of like having somewhere where you could drop ship, because that is going to be the weird one. Because I can just imagine TSA as they're going through your bag going, I think we might have a serial killer here. There's human teeth in here. There's a skull, an axe, some knives, tomatoes, and some pasta.
The besides some of the like game day food, I think I'll be able to ship everything except for the axe, right? That's just not gonna fly. I can check a bag with the knives in it. Everything else should check and be light enough and small enough, besides the tomatoes. I was like, come on, you want me to check 11 tomatoes in those are not making it no matter what.
No, you're gonna have to buy those once you land.
Yeah. So axe and tomatoes I've got to buy when I land in Vermont. Everything else I hope I'll be able to get onto an airplane, which will be interesting.
It'll definitely be interesting. Definitely.
The mental part of it, like you said, is definitely part of the challenge, and that's the part that I personally enjoy the most. I mean, anyone can really say like, hey, we're going to go out in the field and do 3,000 burpees, and no matter how fit you are, 3,000 burpees is a lot and sucks, and people are going to quit, and someone's going to vomit and stuff. The darkness, in quotes, aspect is what I like, when it's 2 a.m. and they're making you carry a rock from bucket A to bucket B, and then you have to carry the rock from B back to A, and it's just like this pointless stuff where it mentally starts to fatigue or break people. That's where I actually kind of have the most fun, which is what I'm looking forward to in the death race. I'm sure there's going to be people that are more fit than I am. I mean, there's always someone, right, more fit than you, taller than you, richer than you, whatever. But I think the mental strength part is what I'm bringing like 10 out of 10 in. I actually told Andy, the first email contact I had with her was, I won't quit. I said, the only way I'm not finishing is if you medically DNF me.
Yeah.
And I feel real confident in that statement still, in terms of I'm going to finish unless they pull me for not hitting some type of time hack, which is possible, or they medically DNF me because I rolled my ankle or something. They say I have hypothermia, or like, I'm not quitting the race. So
No.
it'll be fun. I am really ready for it to be here. I'm definitely looking forward to the challenge, and winning that little skull, which doesn't really fit my house decor. So I'm not sure where I'm going to display a skull.
Well, I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, it's one of those. I had a conversation not too long ago, because there was like wildfires that came really close to my house, and I have a lot of medals from all the races I've done, and they're like, what would you do if you lost those? I'm like, they're just medals. You know, I still have the memories of everything I did to earn those. So, and it's one of those things that, I mean, but just having the mental grit to go through, because I've seen people that are just, you look at them, they're fit, they do everything, but the second they hit something that takes mental grit, their brain just breaks, because they've, you know, their entire lives, they've just been able to, like, they've been the best, they've been able to do this, but the second they have to actually like dig deep, you know what I mean, and grab that and push themselves through, when their body's like, you're done, we're not doing this, you know, those are the people that I love to watch and just be like, now that's amazing. I've seen quite a bit of that, because I've always been I was the bigger guy for a long time, like big. I hit 310 for a bit, but I did a Spartan race in Hawaii once with a full boot on, because I broke my foot and decided I was going to do it anyway. So not the brightest idea, I will tell you that. That was the stupidest thing I ever did. But I mean, it was one of those. I was known for years as the guy that did it was like 2016, the guy that did the Spartan race in a boot. And I'm like, yeah, I'll never do it again. But
Yeah.
it was, we had tickets, we're going to Hawaii. I'm like, might as well go for it.
Yeah, definitely.
But
Definitely.
it, you know, and that's what I see is like, you know, and talking to you, I mean, it's one of those, you know, it's the mental side is what'll get most people. I've seen so many people go into Death Race, you know, a lot of these 50-mile challenges with the Go Rock. I'm doing the CSU Pacific Northwest, and hell, next weekend. Oh, that's gonna be horrible. But which is a 24-hour, like, you start off at the base, you run and do loops throughout, you know, up here in the Pacific Northwest, up and down the side of the mountain with challenges and all the stuff. It's a great race. But this will be my third year doing it, and I love it. But it's one of those things that I've seen people, you know, if you don't have that mental grit to just keep pushing, it's that, you know, for the Sisu, I've seen it, it's the 1-2 o'clock in the morning.
Always right before dawn.
Yep. When you've been pushing all day and all night, and all of a sudden your body's just like, no, we can't do this anymore. And that's when that mental grit starts coming out, and it's like, no, I'm gonna keep doing this. You know, I don't care what you know, my body's saying, I'm gonna push through and I'm gonna get myself to that finish. And those are the people you see finish the Death Race. So I'm hoping to see, you know, your name at the finish there.
I know it'd be nice. It would be great to finish, because a lot of the members at my gym don't really live this lifestyle. They don't know the ultra endurance events. So I explain it to them, and then I'm like, but only like 2 people every year finish. So I'm training really hard to finish. And I think it's definitely a possibility of me finishing. But it's also a very real possibility that I don't finish. So
and I think that's the toughest one to push through. And I mean, I know, because I think when they originally started the Death Race, wasn't it pretty much they just kept going until one person was left standing?
From what I've heard with talks with Joe, that they have a very long list of events, and either Joe or Andy just decide when it's over. I don't think they have like a little like stop sign printed out on their thing. They have like 10 days worth of stuff, and they decide this is done now. That's what I've gotten, kind of the understanding of how the Death Race works. He was on the Ready State podcast a few months ago, and he said one year they might just do it where everyone shows up and they have like a barbecue, and then he says everyone's finished the death race, and that's like what the whole thing, like everyone did it. I'm not sure if he'll ever do that, but he said that would, in his mind of how the death race works, that would be acceptable for
Yeah.
year to do.
Well, yeah, because there's nothing. I mean, it's one of those things. It's not like the Spartan races of like the Beast is a 13.1. The you
Mhm.
know the super is a what? It's a 10K now, and then the sprint's a 5K.
Mhm.
You know, like when I remember when Spartan first started, the Beast was 13 plus,
Mhm.
and you never knew. Like I
Yeah.
can remember the first year I did Montana was 20 something miles.
And the Spartan miles, according
Yes.
to my GPS, are always about 1.1 mile, like the mile, the signs. We're 1 mile in. My watch says 1.2 actually.
Yeah, that was a thing in the Montana race that year. Spartan, I think, said it was 19, 18 or 19, and almost all of us, our watches were in between 22 and 24.
Mhm.
So, and it was brutal, but yeah, it was amazing. But that was just, the way it was. And, and that's where I see the death race. It's one of those Joe's just like, well, it's a race.
Mhm.
And that's pretty much the definition.
Yeah,
It's a
show
race.
up and be ready.
Yeah. I mean, who knows? You might get there and all that stuff. You're going to like dress yourself up as a Viking. You're going to have a Viking dinner and go home.
Yeah. I know I did think about that at one point, if the skull was big enough to wear as a
Yep.
helmet.
That's where I got that all of a sudden. I thought, oh yeah, you could put that thing as a helmet like a Viking and just, yeah,
That would be pretty fun.
that would be
Yeah.
nice. So what got you into? I mean, you're working on your PhD and I can never say that dang word, but yeah,
Kinesiology.
there
Yeah.
you go. That's the word I was looking for. What got you into that? I mean, it's one of those things, you said when you came out of high school, if someone would have told you you're going to be where you're at today, you would have been like, yeah, no.
So education wise, I grew up in a family where education was always really important. I knew I was basically going straight through to get my master's degree, high school graduation, college graduation, master's.
Yeah.
When I got out of high school, pretty much thought there were 3 routes for me possibly: firefighter, cardiac surgeon, college professor. Going the college professor route, it would make sense to be kinesiology or exercise science or something like that, because I've always played sports. I've always been active, loved doing things, and I think that also gets into why I'm doing Spartan races and stuff, and we can chat about that in a second. With the kinesiology, it was always just I joke with some of my members, being a professor and a gym owner is the closest I can be to being a professional athlete without being a professional athlete. Because right, if you were coming to my gym, it's 5 a.m., shake your hand, welcome to the gym, blah blah blah, this is our deal. But I was really out of shape. I couldn't perform the movements properly. I didn't really know what I was talking about. Clearly that's not a gym that anyone wants to go and pay money to, because I'm not living a lifestyle. So I don't feel a ton of pressure. I'm not 4% body fat or anything like that, or winning physique contests. But I can jump on the pull-up bar and rip out some pull-ups and, do dozens of burpees at a time and haul a ruck. I did a 60-pound ruck today for a while. So you kind of have to be able to walk the walk and talk the talk in the business. So that's definitely something that keeps me there. And then the kinesiology thing is just really what my whole passion was. Sports and getting through high school. I was definitely a good student in high school, but getting through and being able to play varsity sports in that competition was really what made high school enjoyable for me, in terms of that group competition and working on bettering yourself and growing and improving, was a lot more important to me than going to like history 200, or I guess that'd be a college class, but history second period. I was like, I'm going to get through this because I get to go play sports after the class ends. And that also leads into why I'm doing Go Rucks and Spartans and things. I'm lucky enough to have a fiance that joins me. She's doing the death race as well. We do a bunch of these types of events together. But really, leaving the high school and college, I played sports, and they were team sports. leaving, and I'm sure a lot of your listeners have gone through the same thing. When you leave the college life, getting 8 buddies together to go play basketball every Tuesday night becomes pretty hard.
Yeah.
So the group team sports somewhat kind of die. And that's how I got into triathlon. It was something that a family friend had done. I'd seen as I was growing up, and it was not even really anything that I was super interested in when I was growing up. It was just a way for me to funnel that competitive personal growth aspect of my life into something that was now gone because team sports were gone.
Yeah.
So I moved into triathlon. Triathlon was awesome. And for some of the reasons that we talked about earlier, I kind of hit my full Ironman and decided to try something like Spartan and GoRuck. Can't see it because I'm on a webcam, but I'm 6'5", 265 pounds. So in my Ironman, I was a foot taller and 100 pounds heavier than everyone else. I had to get my handlebars custom made on my bike because even in the aero position, I couldn't get my shoulders were too wide basically to sit down on the aero forks. So it's a great adventure, or, it's a great sport to be into. It's just not really what I'm there genetically. And I feel a lot stronger as a participant in one of these events where it's like, okay, put 60 pounds in your bag and 60 pounds of sandbag on top of it, and we're hiking up the mountain. Might not be the fastest, but I'm definitely getting it done. The low kind of slow grindy stuff is what I'm really good at. I was joking with a couple of people that my 5th gear is gone. We went out and ran 40-yard sprints until we threw up. I don't have a ton of them in the tank really because of my training I'm doing right now, but my 3rd gear is massive. We get behind a sled, I'll push that thing all the way down the street all day. So it training can definitely make a big impact too on kind of what your fitness is and what your goals are for sure.
Yeah. And that's it. I mean, and that's one thing where, you see people, and I think that was the hardest thing for me when I first, like when I was doing OCRs a lot more, because that's one problem that we have, like up here in Northwest, we get like 2 a year.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't get a whole lot. I'm not sure. I didn't ask, where do you live? You live in California.
San Diego.
Yeah, San Diego. So you get a few down there.
Yeah, we get a bunch.
Yeah, we get a few. We don't get a whole lot up here. But so when I was training really hard for those, I mean, you train for what you're going to be doing. I knew what was at Spartans. I knew to train for, hanging obstacles. I knew to train for grip. I knew to train for, drags, stuff like that. But then like, once you go into triathlons, I had the whole group of friends that I was training with. Once I moved into triathlons, it's me and one friend, because nobody else but us are training for the triathlon. So then it's kind of like you lose, like you said, you lose that team thing. So you start doing a lot more on your own. It's like I built a gym in my garage during, COVID. So I have treadmills, I have, most everything I need. The only thing I don't have is a pool. So I only have a gym membership for the pool. But I also have plenty of lakes around here, but it gets cold.
Yeah,
up here. So it's just now getting warm enough that we can start using the lakes. Like my first time in a lake was 2 weekends ago. I haven't been in a lake all winter since like last September because it just gets so cold up here. But it's like you train for what you're doing.
We're a couple blocks away from the ocean, which is nice, but it's the kind of the same thing. The water definitely in the middle of the winter. And the ocean I would much prefer to swim in lakes, not because of sharks or anything, but fighting the waves and the swell is not real ideal for distance swimming.
No.
Lakes are a lot nicer.
They are. And it's one of those things. So that the hard part, like a lot of people, don't realize this. It's kind of like, when they think about running in a treadmill, like running is running. It's like, no, it's not at all. Running on a treadmill uses different muscles. It's completely different than running on the street. I mean, you're getting the cardio, but you're using different muscles. You have to do both. And it's the same thing with swimming. If you're just swimming in a pool, you could be doing great in the pool, and then you jump out of the pool and go get in the lake and everything goes to hell. And they're like, but it's the same. It's not the same. It's different movements. You're dealing with swells. You're dealing with waves. You got to sight. You got to do all these things that you don't have to do in a pool. In a pool, you look down, you look at the line and you follow it.
Yeah, and if you look down in a lake or the ocean and it's dark enough, it's black. And there are people who freak out about that too.
That was the hardest thing for me to get past, was the first couple ones I did, when all of a sudden I'm looking down and I'm like, I love horror movies, but I've seen enough horror movies and watched things come out of that, and the bad part was, and this sounds so dumb, me and my wife had just watched Lilo and Stitch, like the day before I did my first one. And I'm looking down and all I can see, there's a scene in Lilo and Stitch when they're surfing and the whatever Jamba comes flying up and like grabs him from the deep dark. And I'm like, I just kept seeing it in my brain and I'm like, and it's those stupid, like you said, the mental things that get in your head. Like, I've got to figure out, okay, how do I get past this? And for me, I grew up with asthma. So it's like figuring out how to keep my breathing under control. Because if my breathing goes out of control, I got problems.
Mhm.
And that was my hardest part in the swimming, was getting down to where not panicking, because that's where I'd have problems. I'd jump in the water, I'd panic right away, and then my swim went to hell.
Mhm.
Like the last Ironman I did, I was having a lot of problems on the swim and I started panicking. And I did, I thought about it. I'm like, I can push through, or I swam over to one of the kayaks and just said, okay, I need to take 30 seconds and just get my breathing back. I got my breathing back, and you can sit there and watch my times suddenly change, and you can tell where I stopped and like got that breathing and got it under control. And that's the hardest part in a lot of those things, is figuring out how to deal with your body through the training that you need to do.
Yeah. The swim, I mean, there's a number of reasons why they put the swim first in a triathlon, right? Because if it's last and you stop swimming, people die
Yeah.
instead of being on the run and being able to walk.
Yeah.
And it thins the herd. I mean, no one's going to want to say this either, but people get punched in the face and kicked in the stomach on the swim starts, and it thins the herd a little bit too. So
It does.
no race director is going to tell you that answer, but they definitely put that first for that reason as well.
And I'll be honest, that's the first triathlon I ever DNF'd was because of that. I was swimming. I wasn't that, and I'm still not a fast swimmer, but I can keep going for a long time. But I was in the back of the Olympic swimmers. Well, they let the sprint swimmers go, and the pack caught me
Mhm.
before the turn and literally swam over me.
Mhm.
Like, not just around me, swam
Yeah.
over me, shoved me down in the water. I took in a whole bunch of water, started coughing. My breathing went to hell. I finished the swim, but I like came out of the water and my wife's looking at me, said, I'm gray. And she's like seen me has asthma attacks. She's like, no, this was the worst thing I'd ever seen you. And I'm like, I'm gray. I'm looking at her like, give me my inhaler, give me my inhaler. Took a couple shots on that, jumped on the bike and started to go. And I had problems with the bike. I couldn't get my breathing under control, and I missed the time cut. And it was so funny because when it was a police officer actually that was the one that took me off the course, and she's like, yeah, they told me to watch for the guy with the medical issue coming up. And I'm like, yeah, great. So that's me. But it was just that, and that was one of my first triathlons. And I'm like, okay, well, lesson learned, make sure, watch for that. So now I make sure, that I'm either, if I think they're going to catch me, I move over to the side, but I have also just train harder and get fast enough so they don't catch me. And that doesn't happen. And I know, stay out of the pack, because you will get punched, you will get kicked. I've grabbed people on accident. Like
Oh, yeah.
full on, you're swimming in your hand, like right there, and you're like, oh, I am so sorry. But
and I think that correlates over into these types of ultra endurance events too, because they, what does Gora call it? The shark attack, I guess, aptly named as we're talking about swimming. But a lot of these, I don't want to say top end events, but they're longer events. They're like GoRuck Selection or Spartan Death Race. The Cryptea or the Cadre or whoever's leading it at these top tier events, they interact with the participants differently. They try and freak you out. They want your heart to spike and your breathing to get out of control. And taking a lot of those lessons from breathing is actually I think a great way to put it, is if you can handle asthma while you're face down in the water, having someone scream at you that you're a horrible maggot is probably a little easier. It is really funny because I know a couple of the Cadre and Cryptea, and there's like a light switch. I mean, a lot of those guys are special forces or ex-special forces, and we could be hanging out and high-fiving in the parking lot, and then the event starts and it's a whole different person, and then the event ends and then we're back to, hey, let's go get a burrito or something. And it's designed to create that panic that some people can't handle, and that causes them to pull out as well.
Well, and the one thing is too, is that it's bad to say this, but I know it, because I know some of the, whatever you want to call them, cryptea, whatever. If they know you too well, they'll use that against you.
Oh yeah.
They will totally, if you tell them like, hey, this is one of my fears, check, this is what's coming up in this one, and they will, and because that's their entire thing. They want to push you to that brink of, quitting basically, and then bring you back in. But they want to push you to that limit because that's the whole point of the event. And I have so many people like, why would you want to do that? Like, that's the point, to push yourself to that limit, to where you think your limit is. And then suddenly realize that, actually it's not. My limit's way farther out here, and to push you and to see if you can do it. And I mean, different people come out of them. I mean, I've done it. It's been a long time since I did a hurricane event or any of those. I've done some of the Go Rucks. But when I've done the hurricane events, that was, I knew the cryptea on one of them really well. And then what was funny is the cryptea, or whatever cadre, I always say cryptea, but I think it's cadre now, right? Or is it cryptea?
It's cryptea for Spartan and cadre for Go Ruck.
That's what it is. But I knew him. And then the next event I did, he was actually my partner through the whole event. So instead of, so he actually participated with me, which is funny because a lot of people don't realize that's where my nickname comes from. They call me Pretty Mike because I have the long hair and I was just growing it at that point, and I kept messing with it because it wasn't long enough to pull back in a ponytail yet. So I was messing with it the whole time, and it was actually Dingo. And he's like, come on, Pretty Mike, let's go. Come on, Pretty. And he just kept, by the end of the event, everybody, that was my name. That was Pretty Mike. So, and it's just one of those things, but I knew him well enough that like when I did any other events with him, he knew where to push. Like, I know what's buttons how you have problems with. Let's push. You have breathing issues. Let's push it, not to hurt in any way, but they do it because that's why you're there, to make yourself better.
Yeah. Map, lives about 45 minutes away from us, and we've done a couple, training sessions with him, and he definitely knows how to push. I'm hoping we get one more in before the Spartan race, but it's nice to have someone else design your programming so that they can throw that like unknown at you. Like last time we met up with them, we did keg carries, but we went relatively light so we could run for an hour. So we were usually the kegs are real heavy, right? And it's a slow, short walk because it's a strength thing. He dumped like most of the water out, and we went fast, and for an hour, just blew the shoulders up. Completely different workout than I'd ever done with a keg, because normally they're heavy. And that makes me think of, you said you've got a home garage. We have a funny home garage. It looks like the clampets in my front yard. I've got kegs, tires, railroad ties,
that's
firewood, axes, Atlas stones, buckets.
Yeah, I've got the tires, then I've got the sledgehammers to hit the tires. I've got Atlas balls. I've got but they're all in the backyard because my wife's like, if you put those out front, I will kill you. I'm like, okay.
They're front yard, backyard, driveway for me, so they're all over the place.
I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, I've always found that having the garage gym is amazing because I can go down there. I have the weights, I have the treadmill, I have an elliptical, I have a bike, I have, plus I have a trainer for my bike. And then, I have a bunch of different random things because during COVID in the beginning, everyone was just getting rid of stuff. And I'm like, I'll take it. I'll take it. Yeah. So I got a bunch of stuff free, and then bought a bunch of it too. But then I also have all the Atlas balls and stuff like that outside, and the tires and all that stuff. So for to go run and actually go take this stuff and do stuff. I have the vests. I mean, you got to mix it all up. You got to do different things at different times to get your body, trick your body, do things that you normally want to do. Like I said, it's great to have. I have I call him my suffer brother Brian, and me and him, he'll say, hey, meet me here, bring this with you. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'll show up, and it's like, well, this is a stupid idea. Okay, let's do it.
This is horrible.
This is horrible, but then it'd be like, okay, see you next weekend, and I mean, it's one of those things that, I mean, it's great to have because it's fun, because he'll sit there and say, okay, we're going to do this. And I'm like, I would have never thought of this because this is something I hate doing.
And that's
that's
what Taryn and we work out together so often because she's also a coach at the gym. And obviously we work out and live together. we take turns coming up with like a 4 or 5 hour workout on a Saturday or Sunday most weekends, and we, not really lead them like a cryptair or a cadre, because we both participate, but one person will write it. And it's definitely had some times where it's like, oh, I know all of your weaknesses, so we're going to throw them all into one 5 hour workout. And it's definitely very good training, but also really sucks in the moment when you're like, I've never done this before, but we're going to try it and it's going to be awful.
Yeah. And those are the best ones sometimes. Cause like you said, I mean, it gets you in a whole different, plus it breaks the monotony. I mean, how many times have you done like the same workout over and over again? And that was my biggest problem. Like during COVID, when COVID started, I was 310. And then I started walking again and started doing stuff because I had a really severe foot injury, and I used that as a lame excuse for years. But but I pushed myself, went past it, started doing stuff, and I actually dropped to 180 during COVID.
Wow.
But all I was doing was running. I would just go run. I was running 100 to 180 miles a month. Just run. But then all of a sudden everything opened up again. I'm like, okay, let's go do my first Spartan race. And I had my best time ever, but I had major issues on anything that required strength. Like I could do the monkey bars because now I'm, a lot less weight. So those were easy. Like the hanging obstacles I was okay with. But the second you're like, okay, now pick up the Atlas ball. And I'm like, oh, well, this is a problem. Like I can do it, but I've never struggled this much at it. And that's where I learned, really the fact that sometimes you have to, that's when I really started working with my friend Brian, because it's like, I have to mix things up, because if I don't, the problem you have, I get so stuck on running. I mean, I was lean, but I had no muscle. I couldn't, so, and that's one of those things where, Spartan, a lot of those keep you moving, like the lifting, the running, everything, get a good mix, which makes it a lot more fun.
Yeah. That's finding that kind of the meme joke, the like peak performance is usually not what the guys with no shirts on look like on the Men's Health magazines.
No.
Usually a little bit heavier than that for peak performance.
Yeah. And it's so funny because I've seen both, where you have the guys like that are all ripped, like the ones on the men's magazine. And then it's like, okay, we had a friend of ours is like, oh, that was ripped like that. Like, oh, I want to do one of your workouts. Like 5 minutes in, they're like, I can't keep up with you, because they had the muscle mass, but none of the cardio, but then if muscle, I'm not going to keep up with him on his workout because I can't lift even near that. But it's kind of like, and that's one of the things I love about Spartan, all these other ones, is just the mix. You got to mix it up, got to do everything, to really get into it.
Yeah, it's a great thing. And I hope that they're, Andy, if you're listening, let's get some more hurricane heats in the United States next year, huh? There's only like 5 this year. Couldn't do a hurricane heat trifecta.
Yeah, get some more up in Seattle area.
Yeah, I'll travel up there. It's not too far. I like it up there.
I do too, but I'm actually, if everything goes right, in about 3 months, I won't be here anymore. So, but I'll be a little farther south and east. So
cool. Yeah, should be a good time. Should be. Hopefully Spartan opens up some more stuff. That sounds like their way for next year. More.
So, and for me, it's one of those things where we're looking at Houston, Texas. And part of that too is there's like 4 or 5 Ironmans in Houston. You have other types of races, and I have a longer season. Like here, we had our first triathlon was the first weekend in June in Washington. The last one will be the Ironman in September, and the second weekend in September. There's nothing in between there. Between September and June, nothing. Shut down because nobody wants to go in the water. It's too cold up here.
Yeah, and we kind of have like a split season. This far south, we open a lot, like Ironman. I think is it their official open, the Oceanside, the 70.3?
I think so, yeah. Yep.
So we open kind of the season, but then as our summer really hits, and I don't even really want to say it gets hot. I mean, it's 85 maybe by the water in San Diego. We lose a lot of stuff through July, August for sure. There's not too many events, but then the season's closed here because it's not freezing cold. So they can still run events into October, November, December here, before kind of like wrapping everything up for the year. So we almost have a built-in mid-season break for a lot of these events.
Yeah. See, that's the problem we have here. We get too much of a break in the winter because it's pretty much everything. Like we get our OCR season is pretty much like May to September too. So that's all we have. And then you have that huge window in between where we all, take a break to let our bodies heal for way too long, and that's where my biggest problem is. I took a break like, oh, I need my body. I did some damage, pushing myself for those 4 months. I have an event every weekend for basically 4 months. And then it's like, okay, took a break. And now it's like, okay, now the break was too long. And now I need to work really hard to get back into the shape I should have been when I should have been working all summer. So, or all winter, but it's, it's one of those things that we do to ourselves. We have to keep that mentality. And that's the hardest part.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. I think sometimes here we don't give ourselves that break, especially as like I said, gym owner. If I'm coaching 15, 20 classes a week, that's year round. So there's not too many breaks.
That doesn't sound like a lot of breaks. So
No.
Right on. Well, we're close to an hour mark. So is there anything else you want to say to anyone before we
could I plug my CBD research?
Hell no. Yeah, you can. I'm kidding. No. Go ahead. I mean, you can. I mean, now is it ingestible or is
no, so it's not a product. It's just it's an online questionnaire.
Oh yeah, you can plug that. Go ahead. I mean, it's one of those things. I'll be honest. My knees love the CBD lotion.
Yeah. It's not. I'm not selling anything. I'm just looking for thoughts and opinions.
Yeah. Go ahead and plug it, and then make sure that Don, in the emails that he sent you or the messages you guys were going back and forth, make sure we get the link so people can.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So as part of my PhD research, I'm doing. It's actually an international PhD. That's a long story. I won't get into it. CBD happens to be legal in some countries and some states and not legal in other countries. So I'm looking for anyone that's listening, you live in anywhere in the world. I'd love to hear your thoughts, feelings, usages of CBD. If you are physically active, or if you're not using CBD, let me know why. The link is cbdstudy.org. And it's a questionnaire. It doesn't cost any money, not selling any products. You're not going to get any spam emails from me, simply just your thoughts and feelings. And it takes about 10 minutes to fill out the survey. And it would be a huge help to me. And really the athletics world, CBD kind of worldwide, we're super on the brink of CBD being legal or not legal for competitions, or see if it's effective or not, because no one really knows. So that's cbdstudy.org, and I'll send that over.
Perfect. That'll be awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely fill it out too. I use it. I have knee issues, and I found that the best thing, I'll slather my knees with CBD and then put basically a wrap on them, and it makes it feel a lot better.
Yeah, anecdotally, that's basically all I've heard from people, is especially the topical pain relief or inflammation really helps. But there's only like 5 studies that have been published worldwide on looking at it from a sports performance point of view. So does CBD actually help like muscle recovery, whether you take it post-workout or continually or whatever? Any of the products that you're buying, especially in the United States, they can basically write whatever they want on them. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be taking CBD, because obviously if it works, it works, but there's very little research backing any of those product claims. And that's one of the reasons why I picked it for my dissertation research. So
that's awesome. Yeah, like I said, I've never really done it orally. Part of the problem I do with that is I'm in construction safety, so I do a lot of like government jobs. So I might have to take a drug, because I haven't had to in years, but it's possible, and I don't want there to be a problem with my job. But I know for like the topical, like I said, my knees, I was supposed to technically have surgery on my knees over 20 years ago. And it's pretty much, I told them as long as I could still walk, we're good. But I found when I was running like 100 to 170, miles a month, I found CBD was my friend. If I was getting really sore with the knee, I would just take, slow down for a couple of days, wrap it, and, put a knee sleeve on with some CBD and just let it sit overnight. And usually by the next day, the swelling would be down and it'd be feeling a lot better. So,
hopefully it's a better way to manage that versus some prescription pills or surgery for some of the less serious injuries.
I stay away from the prescription pills as much as I can. It's one of those things I always tell everyone. It's not that I have a I like them. That's the problem. And I know I like them. I mean, I've never had like an issue like with addiction with them, but I know I like them. So it's like, I just need to, and probably too, as I know I would take them because I'm hurting on an event to be able to push myself to keep going and probably hurt myself more. And I know that about myself because I know I do it because I pushed myself a couple times to events where I know looking back now, I'm like, yeah, I should have stopped. But yeah. So, all right. Well, it's been great meeting you. Great talking to you.
Thank you very much.
I honestly wouldn't mind talking to you again sometime because it's a lot of the stuff you're doing with the gym and everything else fascinates me. So
yeah, let me know.
All right. Sounds good.
All right. Cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the BeastNet podcast. If you haven't done it yet, find us on Facebook, like and share the podcast. Give us a review on iTunes or Spotify. All these things will help to expand the show in the future. Don't forget to subscribe and let us know what you think and what you'd like to hear.